It's actually a fairly comprehensive plan. The one I focused in on is, because it does a lot of reform on the tax code, what I focused in on is the part of the plan which I think is the most dynamic and the one that will, no question in my mind, get bipartisan support, which is try to revive our manufacturing sector of the economy. If you look at, and then, Donald Trump almost made a political career, as short as it was, on going to war with China. And you're seeing all this stuff. We're going to go to war with China. We've got to be tough on China. Why? Because China's eating our lunch. They're taking a lot of our jobs away from us. What kind of jobs are they taking? Manufacturing jobs. And if you look at what's happened in this country in the past 25, 30 years, we've cut the number of manufacturing jobs as a percentage of the workforce at over in half. And as a result of that, people who are skilled, who are tradesmen, who are not college educated, are finding it increasingly hard to find jobs that support a family. And one of the, I don't give much attention to these Wall Street, these, what are they called? Yeah, those folks. Occupy, whatever. I don't give much attention to them because a lot of them are cranks. But there, at least initially, the idea of Wall Street getting compensated and nobody really looking after the little guy is Republicans have to, this is a legitimate complaint, folks. If you look at what's happened in income distribution in this country, it's real. If you're a college-educated person, you're going to do well in America, by and large. And if you're not, you're going to struggle. Only about 30 to 35% of the people in this country are going to get a college education. So how are we going to get the rest of these folks to be in jobs that they can be sustained? I'm not talking about people that don't have talents and skills. So the answer is we have to bring back the kind of jobs that pay well enough for those people who have skilled or semi-skilled to be able to make the kind of wages that our families sustain. And how I do this is actually pretty simple. I make manufacturing profitable in America. What makes manufacturing unprofitable? Well, we have very high wage rates, right? You guys are dealing with this question here in New Hampshire with the right to work issue. But we have high wage rates, and we have a horrible regulatory environment, and we have a horrible litigation environment. And we have high taxes, the second highest corporate tax in the world. So you have the second highest corporate tax in the world. You have a hostile regulatory environment. You have a hostile litigation environment. And you're going to have, and now you have problems with access to capital. So how are we going to fix these problems? Well, as I mentioned, the first thing is taxes. We cut taxes. 35% corporate rate, second highest in the world. For manufacturers, we zero it out. If you make things in America, you don't pay any corporate taxes. Number one. The regulatory environment. I've said every regulation that the Obama administration has passed that affects manufacturing that's over $100 million a year, we can repeal it. Presidents can't go in and force laws to be changed, but they can repeal every regulation. There's no regulation a president can't repeal. Now, in some cases, we'll have to replace it with something, but there's a lot of regulations that the Obama administration has put in that I'll repeal and not replace. But we will go in there and say we will create a regulatory environment that will protect health, safety, and the environment, but will work with businesses so they can be compliant and profitable instead of being punitive and driving people not only offshore, but I mean you have labor, this NORB issue, which is driving people out of the state of South Carolina who want to set up a plant, $1 billion investment in South Carolina, a right-to-work state, from Washington State, and we have the Obama administration that's going to drive them offshore if they have their way. So a regulatory change is essential. Third is capital. How do we get capital? Well, all of these businesses made money by outsourcing their jobs. There's $1.2 trillion sitting in banks all over the world for manufacturers that could come back to the United States because they're United States-based companies. They could come back, but they aren't. Why? Because there's a 35% excise tax that's applied to profits made offshore. And so my proposal, zero out, that's why I call it my 0-0-0 plan. about the consequences of it first. And it's a 0% corporate tax, zero out regulations on manufacturers that cost more than $100 million, and zero out the excise tax. So if you bring that money back to the United States, invested in planted equipment, you pay no excise tax. You have now $1.2 trillion of capital available to invest in America to rebuild our manufacturing base. It's an enormous economic generator. I'm also for tort reform. I'm also for stable energy prices, which is another reason. And can we do anything about wages? No, we can't, and we shouldn't. Because you know what? Wages is only a very small part of what most of the manufacturing is in this country. If it's a manufacturing facility that wages is a very high percentage of the cost of doing business, we're not going to get those jobs back no matter what. But most manufacturing in the world, and most manufacturing that we can be profitable, wages are a relatively modest component because of automation and robots. We need people who can work on machines to do the manufacturing instead of doing the drill presses by themselves or the actual hand work that is necessary. So we can turn this around, create millions of jobs overnight.
Thank you very much.